Out in space, it's a long way to the nearest hamburger joint. Any food an astronaut needs has to be planned well in advance of leaving Earth.
This is our new Extended Duration Orbiter package, our EDO package, for the rehydratable food items. This has replaced the square, rigid white cup that used to fly on all the missions. So you won't see any of the square white cups anymore. You'll see this.
But you don't have to be in space to need to plan your diet. If you head out into the wilderness, you also need to take with you all the food you need to keep fit and healthy.
What's for lunch?
Tuna with oven-dried tomatoes and basil or cruskets with mayo.
Our bodies need a variety of nutrients in order to function properly. Our most basic requirement is water, which makes up about 65% of our body. The other nutrients are protein, carbohydrate, fat, vitamins and minerals. Proteins are the building blocks of life, used by our bodies for growth and repair. They also make up the enzymes and hormones that our bodies use for metabolism and the antibodies that fight disease. Adults need about 0.75 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. People who are young and growing need to consume about 1 gram per kilogram per day. Otherwise, they could end up like these children in Papua New Guinea. The lack of protein in their diet of root crops causes a disease known as kwashiorkor, which leads to swelling of the belly due to enlargement of the liver. Carbohydrates have two important roles. Highly digestible carbohydrates, such as starch and glucose, provide us with energy. Partially digestible carbohydrate is known as dietary fibre and is important to keep things moving along for a healthy bowel. Fats are a rich source of energy, but they also have many other functions, such as helping to keep our nerves in working order. So although too much fat can lead to obesity and disease, we do need some fat in our diets. To meet all these requirements, our intake of nutrients needs to be properly balanced. In an ideal diet, our energy would come from 10 to 15% protein, 55 to 60% carbohydrate, and about 30% fat. The total amount of energy that we need will vary. We need a lot if we're growing quickly and if we have an active lifestyle. And people with a large build need more energy to keep their bodies going than people with a smaller frame. Vitamins and minerals are an essential part of the millions of chemical reactions that take place in our bodies every day. Many early seafarers fell victim to scurvy, a disease caused by a lack of vitamin C. They suffered bleeding in their skin and gums, and many eventually died. Captain Cook was the first to seriously tackle scurvy, forcing his crew to eat cabbage, one of the many vegetables and fruits that are high in vitamin C. Lack of vitamin A interferes with our night vision and eventually leads to blindness. But too much vitamin A is also problematic. Early Arctic explorers who dined on polar bear livers rich in vitamin A suffered nausea, fatigue, and a host of other problems. Iron is a mineral that's used in the formation of red blood cells. It's especially important for women because of menstruation, for pregnant women to supply blood to the baby, and for both guys and girls while their bodies are growing.
Probably try to ask her in a more roundabout way.
Too little iron causes anemia, which can lead to tiredness and headaches. Calcium, a mineral that's plentiful in dairy foods, is essential for healthy teeth and bones. Calcium deficiency in our growing or adult years causes osteoporosis, a loss of bone density. This makes our bones prone to breaking and crushing. Astronauts also lose bone density during long missions because the lack of gravity in space interferes with calcium metabolism in the bone. They try to limit the damage by getting plenty of exercise and supplementing their diet with calcium. The best way to get all the nutrients we need in about the right amounts is to eat a variety of foods in the proportions recommended by the Healthy Eating Pyramid. Here's an example of breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Looks easy, but in some situations this takes a bit of planning. Sarah and John are preparing to take 20 guys and girls on a 3-day wilderness camp. This is what's in store for them, so they're going to need plenty of energy. That means plenty of the right kind of food. Plus, they want to enjoy what they're eating. Cereal is packed with carbohydrates and makes a satisfying breakfast. Long life milk travels well and is a good source of calcium and protein. There's also bread and jam for extra energy. For lunch, Lebanese bread is another good source of carbohydrate. And to fill the bread, fresh vegetables provide vitamins and minerals, and tinned tuna adds protein and calcium. For dinner, it's a vegetable stew with red lentils, a good source of protein, iron, fibre and energy from carbohydrates. And for that pick-me-up between meals, peanuts, combined with some chocolate, they're a power pack of energy, which is good when you're burning fuel fast. Now, how can John and Sarah make sure that this menu will meet their campers' needs? This is a spreadsheet, an excellent tool for menu planning. Using data from food composition tables, this spreadsheet gives a day's worth of food items. With the protein, fat, carbohydrate and energy values per 100 grams of each food type. Let's try entering some amounts per person per day. The spreadsheet has been set up so that if we alter the amount of food, the nutritional values adjust automatically. For protein, this menu gives a total of 110 grams. We need about 1 gram per kilogram of body weight per day, so that's actually more than enough. To check if we have enough energy, we need to refer to a nutrition text. Moderately active 16 to 18-year-olds need between 8,800 and 13,500 kilojoules per day, or an average of 11,150 kilojoules per day. We also need to allow extra energy for especially active people. Looking at our menu, we see it's lacking in energy. Let's increase some of the food quantities. This is called a trial and error solution. You take an educated guess, see what the result is, then modify your guess. Eventually we reach a combination that will make sure the campers don't go hungry. These campers are lucky because their food was brought to them by a car.
How do we know?
When you have to carry everything with you, the critical issue is weight. In this situation, potatoes are out because most of their weight is water. Rice is a better choice because it's mostly carbohydrate and only about 11% water. Freeze-dried meals are lightweight and are designed to be nutritionally balanced and high in energy. They can help get the load down to as little as 1 kilogram per person per day.
How much cheese do we need? Check it out.
Most vegetarians are lacto-ovo-vegetarian, meaning they do eat dairy foods and eggs, but they don't eat any meat. Meat is a rich source of protein and iron. So vegetarians need to make up for this with other foods. Protein is made up of several amino acids. Some of these, the non-essential amino acids, can be manufactured by our bodies. The essential amino acids have to come from our food. Meat is known as a complete protein because it contains all of the amino acids in a ratio that suits the body's needs. Dairy foods and eggs and soy-based products are also sources of complete protein. Most plant proteins are incomplete because they are low in certain essential amino acids. But because we usually eat a range of different plant foods, they still give us the right amino acid balance. Take peanuts. They're a good source of the amino acid lysine, but are relatively low in methionine. Wholemeal bread is higher in methionine, but is relatively low in lysine. Together, they make a more balanced source of protein. Nuts and whole grain cereals are also good sources of iron. So are eggs and legumes, and dried fruits and green leafy vegetables. But we need to remember that the body absorbs less than 10% of the iron in plant foods, compared with around 20% of the iron in meat. So as a vegetarian, you need lots of iron-rich foods. And by including foods that are high in vitamin C, absorption of iron is increased. These days, you can also buy foods that are fortified with iron, vitamin C, and other vitamins and minerals. Jess lives in a self-catered university college. She hasn't got a lot of spare cash, but she and her friends need to eat properly to keep up with the pace of study and social life. Tonight, it's Jess's turn to cook. She's planning the menu carefully because she's cooking for 7 people and she only has $20. One thing Jess could look at is how much energy you get for your money from different foods. Here's another spreadsheet showing the price and energy content for some high carbohydrate foods. From this, we can calculate the cost per 1,000 kilojoules of energy. Potatoes are quite expensive because you're paying for a lot of water. Pasta and rice are much cheaper sources of energy. Meat is a more expensive source of energy than plant foods because it takes several kilograms of vegetation to produce 1 kilogram of meat. Even though different cuts of meat have similar nutritional value, there is a surprising amount of variation in cost. Offal, such as kidney and liver, is inexpensive because it's not in fashion. Chuck steak from the animal's shoulder is cheap because it has a lot of connective tissue or gristle. This means it gets quite chewy if it's fried or grilled. But the gristle can be tenderised by cooking the meat slowly in water, so a stew can be a good cheap meal. But students are often too busy to wait around for a stew, so Jess is going to use mince, another cheaper meat option, to make a quick and tasty spaghetti bolognese. To go with the spaghetti, Jess has chosen salad and bread, then fruit and ice cream for dessert. Notice that this menu doesn't include many convenience or ready-made foods. Because they're processed, ready-made foods tend to be expensive. They also vary a lot in their contents. Many are high in fat, sugar or both. That doesn't necessarily mean we shouldn't eat them. The important thing is to be aware of their contents and make them part of a diet that suits our overall needs. So ice cream is okay, and by choosing the one that's on special, you can save money too. In the fresh food section, you can also save some money by buying what's in season and, if possible, by choosing produce that's grown locally. When it comes to the mince, you can choose between different grades. Leaner grades are more expensive, but they're also lower in fat. Meat-eating Australians generally get more protein than they need, so it's quite okay to go for a leaner grade but buy a smaller amount. The pasta will bulk up the meal, making sure that no one ends up hungry. No one wants to be thinking about every detail of every single meal. Luckily, we don't need to do that to have a healthy diet. What we do need is a basic understanding of our nutritional requirements and of the nutrients that make up the foods we eat. Then, by planning things carefully when we have to, or making simple, informed choices in our everyday lives, we can have a balanced diet and enjoy what we're eating.